Is celebrity boxing coming to an end? Jake Paul just announced his next fight, and it's coming at us fast. It's the beginning of March, and I gotta tell you guys, Paul got me. Not only did Paul got me early. I went for it. I got on board. I got on board when he was still boxing basketball players. It was the night of Roy Jones versus Mike Tyson. It was the small stuff that Paul did. I remember his team, they all had these cool uniforms, and he was working like some cool haircut. And I remember the way he was warming up. I mean, I know that sounds small, but I started thinking, hey, there's something to see here. I remember the numbers for Tyson and Roy Jones came in. We were told as an audience it was 1.7 million, but I questioned that greatly. I greatly personally questioned how much of that was Roy Jones and Tyson versus how much of that was Paul. And I don't think that anybody has the answer, but I know that Roy Jones and Tyson did not go on and continue to do great numbers, and Paul went on to become a business in and of himself. So, I like Paul the boxer. I'm not convinced I like Paul the boxer more than I like Paul the promoter. I'm not convinced of that. And when I ask you, is celebrity boxing coming to an end? I'm seeing less and less celebrities going out and doing it. I've seen less and less celebrities willing to go out there and mix it up, specifically with Paul. See, that was the one big difference in Paul and all the other celebrities that wanted to bang their chest or do some curls and go look in the mirror and put out something on Instagram, right? I mean, there really was a meaningful difference, which is he'll really go out and fight you. And we don't have to spoof it. It doesn't have to be 3 one-minute rounds. He will fight you under your rules. He'll fight you under the unified rules. He'll fight you under the Queensberry rules. He'll fight you for 3 rounds, 4 rounds, 6 rounds. He did an 8-round fight with Nate Diaz. That's crazy, by the way. The fact that Jake Paul signed up for an 8-round fight at that point in his career is crazy. He never got the credit for it. He's doing a great job with Amanda. He wants to push her, and he's pushing her hard. He pushed her opposite Katie at the Garden, helped to fill up and sell that thing out. That was a great night. Eddie Hurt, plenty of people had something to do with it, but it was more special because of Jake. It just was. And now Jake Paul's put out an announcement, and he's going to co-headline. This is his own card. He's in charge. He decides who goes where. He put himself number 2, put her number 1. And the fight is soon. It's like guys, it's like March 1st. It's soon. It's right around the corner. The only person who would promote cards on short notice was Floyd. And nobody ever caught on to this recipe. I don't know why. This was a simple observation by Chael, but Floyd had a sweet spot of 5.5 weeks. And the only exception that you will find to that, if you go back and you study from press conference announce on, they call it an on sale, means the day tickets go on sale, to the time of the box office, which is the fight itself, Floyd would do 5.5 weeks, one exception, his match with Conor McGregor. They had a very different media tour, very different build-up for that fight. But Floyd, even when he stood opposite Manny Pacquiao, which we as a society, not even as a boxing community, as a society, waited 10 years to see that fight. And the day that SportsCenter announced contracts are signed, Floyd versus Manny, to the night they walked out there and were the cure for insomnia, it was 5.5 weeks. And it was perfect. It was perfect. I loved it. As a matter of fact, the only thing that would make it better is if it was less time, but everybody would go more. 8 weeks was very common. You generally couldn't keep a secret, so about 12 weeks in advance it would come out, and then they would deny it as a way of promoting it. Then when that would die down, about 10 weeks before you get an announcement, then you get the official announcement 8 weeks before, and it was one of these things where, man, I'm bored. And there was so few fights back then that 8 weeks you could get away with. right? In the world of boxing where they only give you 2 big fights a year, sometimes 1. I mean, it was from 2005 until retirement that Floyd Mayweather represented one half of the biggest fights that boxing was going to do in a year. He only fought twice a year. So it's just one of these situations where they were so few and so spread out that you could make an announcement. If you do that in MMA now, if you do that in boxing now, you'll get lost in the shuffle. You'll be promoting a fight that's in the summertime when you got a match coming up in the spring. You'll just confuse people. So you got to do a shorter notice. And I like that about Paul. I love the fact, I don't know who he's fighting. And I'm not trying to be a dick about it. I'll learn. I'll get you right. I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm sharing. I don't know who he's fighting. I looked at it. I did not recognize the guy. I don't love the idea that Paul is getting pushed into boxing certain guys. I don't love the idea. I think that Paul stepped in this space and he stepped in as a leader. He said, there's another way to do it. It's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to sell out arenas. I think he's right. When he changes how long a round is going to be from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, just for example, or if he changes how long a main event is going to be, as opposed to 12 rounds, it's going to be 8 rounds. These are great changes. These are great adjustments. It's too long. Nobody wants to watch any 2 people box for 12 rounds. Nobody. The biggest sports fan in the world does not want to watch the same 2 guys for 12 rounds. And boxing knows that about itself. It's changed over time. You know they didn't used to have rounds? Just for example, did you know that? If a guy ever knocked down, that signified a round. Are you aware of that? You could have 40 and 50 round fights. Then all of a sudden you get sanctioned, you get the government involved, you're going to go off of safety, you start making 15 rounds. I was alive during this, by the way. Like this isn't way back in the olden days that you're only hearing about with Jack Johnson. You're standing out there in the Queensboro. I was alive. Sugar Ray Leonard, I believe, versus Donnie Lalonde was booked for 15 rounds. Sugar ended up stopping him. Donnie Lalonde, great Canadian fighter. You should go look him up. That's too much. Then they shorten it down to 12, and then some jurisdiction will even allow 10. You're going the right way. Keep going. But I bring this to you because this is leadership that Paul brought forward. And people, instead of crediting Jake Paul, wanted to look at the fact that he's going 8 rounds and go, well, he's not doing championship rounds. He should be out there for 10 or he should be out there for 12. This is the way that they looked at it. They're wrong. They're wrong. They should be coming now. And Frank, 8 is too much. You will hear about how boring boxing is. You will hear boxing announcers covering guys. Well, there's a feeling out process. There is no such thing. There is no such thing. There is never a day in pugilistic practice. It doesn't matter if you're 6 years old, if you're 8 years old, which USAB requires you to be, or you go all the way to 38 and 48 years old like George Foreman. There is never a day your trainer and or coach will show you how to feel a guy out. There is never a day you will do a drill called the feeling out process. There is never a day that your coach and or trainer will explain to you that round 1 is to be treated differently than rounds 4, 5, so on and so forth. It is a made-up term by boxing announcers because the product sucks and they're trying to cover for it. But you don't ever hear of a feeling out process, and you don't ever hear of a boring fight within the amateurs. Why? Why are the pros painfully boring to watch and the amateurs aren't? Because the amateurs are out there for 3 rounds. There is no other answer. It has nothing to do with the headgear. It has nothing to do with the point system. It has nothing to do with the glove and the white spots. Nothing. It has nothing to do with the tank top. It has nothing to do with the change into the cup. It has everything to do with the rounds. And I bring that to you because that's leadership being demonstrated by Jake Paul. So I don't like when a great leader like Paul, who comes in with his own ideas and his own money, then gets pushed around by the audience for who he's going to box. It was much more fun when he was fighting slam dunk winners, quite frankly. It was much more fun when he was fighting Anderson Silva, quite frankly. It'd be a lot more fun if he was standing opposite George Masvidal. You want the real money fight, put him in there, no, go right with Mike Perry. And I'm just sharing for you, I like Paul the boxer, even if I'm alone on that. But I'm not sure I like him more than I like Paul the promoter. And the fact that he's writing the check, he's setting the card, and he has put himself in the number 2 spot so that his girl can go number 1 is yet another thing that I doubt he will, but he should get credit for.